Welcome back to the inside. Today we're going to explore the second principle of Yin Yoga, and that's the principle of becoming still. And there's many levels of the stillness. There's a physical stillness, but that also leads to a quietening of the breath and a quietening of the mind. So today's practice will be a bit quieter, and the intention is to cultivate mindfulness, kind of a meditative approach. And for this one, we're going to use a prop called the wall. So if you can set yourself up near a wall, and we'll actually do our opening meditation against the wall. Now there's a technique that helps us to go upside down. And it starts by just sitting sideways beside the wall. And then you simply swing your legs up the wall. And if you need to, you can scoot in a little bit more until you're nice and close with the wall. However, for some people, this is too close and it's a bit too much stress in the lower back. So they can lift the hips up and put some sort of support under their hips, or they can just back away from the wall a little bit. We're going to start with a butterfly. And just bring the soles of your feet together. You can relax your hands either onto the knees or at your side or onto your belly and your heart. If this is too much for the knees, you can also grab a block or two. Maybe that will help to support the legs here as well. Whoops. But if you're okay, you can just stay here. I invite you to close your eyes and just use this as a time to arrive. Simply to be with the breath in this moment. As we linger here in a wall butterfly, keep bringing awareness back to the breath. Simply allowing the breath to come and go. And perhaps saying to yourself, breathing in, breathing out. Or notice the sensations that are starting to arise within the body. These sensations too, we simply allow. About another minute here. So we're aware of our present experience, but we allow it, we accept it. About 3 more breaths here. And before opening the eyes, take a moment to set an intention for your practice today. What do you intend by doing your yoga today? Physical health, calmness, presence. One of the key things for our journey today is the practice of mindfulness. So open your eyes, and slowly straighten your legs up the wall, and just feel the release there. If you like, you can shake the legs, you massage the knees a bit. And we're already in our second pose. This is called the wall caterpillar. As we stay here, for some people, the gravity bringing the blood away from the feet can cause senses of tingling, pins and needles. If that becomes too much, simply come out and do a regular seated caterpillar. Otherwise, I invite you again to just close your eyes and allow this feeling to be here. Now again, some people may need to be further away from the wall, and it's okay to have the knees slightly bent. So find the place where you can just hang out here. It's a mild stretch along the back of the body. And this is a wonderful pose for anyone who wants to do a seated forward fold, but doesn't really want to get into the spine. This is all about the legs today. So the spine stays quite neutral. The lower back does flatten a bit, however, so again, some people may need to set up on a block or a cushion, or even a folded blanket. But once you're in the pose, commit to the stillness. And that's the second principle of the Yin practice. Recall the first principle is coming to an edge. The second, stillness. The third, time. So we'll be lingering in these poses for a while. Again, you don't need permission to come out early if it's too much. Otherwise, we cultivate the stillness. At first, the stillness is physical. And when we're physically still, the muscles don't move. When we move the muscles, then they need fuel. We need more oxygen. So if we're constantly moving, we have to be breathing deeper. And also when we constantly move, the muscles tend to take the stress. And in the Yin practice, we like the stress to soak into the deeper tissues. So the physical stillness leads to deepening stress in the connective tissues, but also it leads to a quieter breath. It's not that we stop breathing, it's just the breath becomes softer, slower, even shallower. And sometimes spontaneously there'll be a pause between the breaths. We don't try to create that, we simply notice it. And we notice the moment between breaths is often a moment between thoughts. And this is a deeper level of stillness. When the breath is calm, the mind becomes quiet. You may have noticed that when you see someone really concentrated at a task, perhaps something as simple as trying to thread a needle. And in that moment of pure concentration, he'll hold his breath. When the breath is still, the mind is still. The analogy often used is fish in a school or birds in a flock. When one fish moves, the other moves. The same with the breath and the mind. If the breath moves, the mind moves. If the breath is still, so too is the mind. So And notice the physical stillness, how it leads to a quiet breath. And how that leads to a quiet presence in the mind. We're here for about another 2 minutes, if that's appropriate for you. So our intention in this practice is to cultivate stillness, mindfulness. Alice in Wonderland met a fabulous cat called the Cheshire Cat. And she met the cat at the fork in the road. She asked the cat, which way should she go? The cat said, where are you going? She said, I don't know. The cat said, then it doesn't matter which way you take. And that's the power of our intention. If you have no idea where you're going, it really doesn't matter what path in life you take. But once you have an intention, you have a direction to move in. And of course, you're always free in life to change the destination, the direction of your journey. But with the intention, we also have to pay attention to notice if we're still on track, if we're still headed towards our desired destination, direction. About 3 more breaths here. Now from the wall caterpillar, we're going to come into a wall squat. Simply bend your knees. Move your feet a little bit apart. It's like we're squatting, but we're against the wall. Now make this doable. Some people will need to be further away from the wall, and that's okay. Again, some people may need some support underneath the pelvis. You don't have to have the legs wide apart. That will come later when we do the wall straddle. But for now, just hang out here. Notice some people feel a painful pinching into the pelvis area here. So if that's the case, you can grab a bolster, a blanket, or even folded up pieces of strap and place them between the chest and the thigh. And that may take away this pinchy feeling here. And you can rest the hands at your side. You can lightly hold on to the legs, or just rest them onto your chest. Once again, close your eyes. Notice your breath, allowing the breath to become quiet, slower. A poet named Ursula Le Guin once said that, well, it's nice to have an end to the journey. It's the journey that's important in the end. So the end to our journey is our intention, our direction. And it's nice to have a destination to head towards. But just as important is the attention we spend while we're on the journey. We pay attention. Way back in 1969, the US NASA agency sent men to the moon. Apollo 9, 10, 11. And on the way to the moon, they were following a nominal orbit worked out by their computers. It was about a 2.5-day journey from the Earth to the moon. So the destiny was clear. Our intention was to send men to the moon. But only 3% of the time were the spaceships actually on track. Were they following the nominal orbit? 97% of the time, the astronauts were off track. They weren't heading towards their intended target. But the spaceship had sensors, and NASA was monitoring. They paid attention. And when they noticed that they were off track, they corrected. And of course, they overcorrected, so they're off track in the other direction. They noticed that too. They pay attention. They corrected again. And so through this constant attending and correcting, they approximated the correct orbit to the moon. And ended up where they intended. And the same with our intentions in life and with our yoga practice. We start with an intention, but then we pay attention to notice if we're on track. Are we getting to where we want to go? Am I feeling sensations? Am I able to stay present? A couple of more minutes here. Many people claim they don't have time to meditate. They find time to do the yoga practice. There's a lot of physical benefits for yoga. But the mental, psychological, emotional benefits that meditation offer, they don't really have time for that. But our yoga practice can be our meditation practice, especially in the Yin style of yoga, where we have these 4, 5, 6 minutes or longer periods where we can practice being mindful. So for the last 3 breaths here, notice your breath. Don't try to change it, simply allow it to come and go. And when we really allow the breath, we let it go, naturally it becomes quieter. One more breath. And remember, coming out of Yin Yoga poses is what it's really all about. It feels so good. So slowly lift your legs back up against the wall. You can pause there or shake the legs a bit. We're going to continue to work into the inner legs now with the wall straddle. This is simply allowing the legs to fall apart. Now this can get very juicy for the inner legs, especially as we hold here for about 30, 40 minutes. Just kidding. It'll only feel like that. Again, for some people, you might need to be a little bit further away from the wall. For other people, again, this feels maybe too intense. The legs need to be a little bit closer together. So again, some options. You can use blocks, again, underneath the legs. You angle the blocks in, and they may support the legs enough so that you don't get quite the strain in the legs. But another elegant option, if you happen to have 2 yoga straps, is to hook them together in one big loop. Now we can have the strap itself prevent the legs from falling too far apart. Now you may need to pause, go get the straps. Now you can see how the straps prevent the legs from going further. So if it's too intense without using anything, go ahead and use some straps or some props. If you're not feeling anything, you can just rest your upper hands, or sorry, your hands in the upper legs, letting the weight of the arms help to pull you down. If you don't have room to have your legs separating wide against the wall, you can just do the wall butterfly again, or come down and do the wall straddle against the floor, like you'd normally do a straddle pose. Again, the intention is just to be where you can feel a stress. Now this is a lovely stress for the inner legs. Even the inner knees might get some stress here. As long as it's not painful, there's no burning sensations, we're just going to let this soak in. Again, you can close your eyes, rest your hands. Come back to this practice of a mini meditation, the practice of mindfulness. Be as relaxed as you can physically, so the muscles can relax. So the breath can quiet. Now, there are several definitions for mindfulness. One that I particularly resonate with is from a Zen monk named Thich Nhat Hanh. He defines mindfulness as the energy of being awake and aware of the present moment. It's a continuous practice of touching life deeply in every moment. Mindfulness allows us to be totally present and at one with those around us. And it doesn't require that we have to go anywhere special. We can practice mindfulness in our room or on our way from one place to another. We can pretty much do what we always do. Walking, sitting, eating, working, talking. But we learn to do them with an awareness of what we're doing. So mindfulness is attending to the present moment. Another shorthand way of describing this, as it's evolved into the present time, is awareness of present experience with acceptance. So notice your present experience. Attend to the sensations, attend to the breath. But it's very yin-like, it's allowing, it's accepting. Don't try to change it. I'm not trying to fix anything. We're not trying to create anything special either. We're just allowing whatever's arising right now to be there. Of course, wisdom dictates if the sensations are becoming so uncomfortable that they're painful, then it's wiser to modify the pose, or even come out of the pose. But the only way you really know is by paying attention. So we have the intention of stillness, of presence. We pay attention. We allow the sensations of this moment to be. About 2 more minutes here. The last 3 breaths. We're going to slowly draw the legs together. If you need to, you can use your hands. You need to let the legs just be up the wall. If you need to, you can shake the legs, or you can do a little bit of windshield wipers, just a little bit of movement. And you can pause with the legs up the wall for a moment. And we're going to come into a variation that's sometimes called Eye of the Needle pose or sitting swan. You can place one ankle just below the other knee. So below means more towards the floor. And then the straight leg bends. The foot stays against the wall. Now for many students, they're going to be too close to the wall, so you can snuggle a little bit away, just so your pelvis feels supported. The wall eye of the needle pose. Now if this is too much for this hip, if you get a pinching sensation there, you can have this hand kind of prop the knee up, but it may get a bit tiring to hold that. So there are options. Again, you can use a bolster between the chest and the thigh, and that may make this pose a little bit more accessible. If the pinching is a bit more local, you can take the strap that you had, just make a few little folds or loops here, and place them between the thigh and the pelvis, and that creates a little bit of space here so you can hang out. Then we just let this soak in, so you can close your eyes. Make sure there's no stress in the knee. Sometimes just flexing the foot a bit may help to stabilize the knee a bit. Now the pose will do the work. So we're free to turn this into a mindfulness meditation. About 2,500 years ago, the Buddha developed this form of meditation that's heading outward, opening up the sense doors, paying attention to more and more things. And truly, the Buddha was the world's first psychotherapist. It was hundreds or even thousands of years after his time that people started to add a lot of mythological powers to the Buddha. He gained the magical ability to see into past lives and future lives. But the earliest writings about the Buddha, it's called the Pali Canon, they read very much like a psychotherapeutic text. The Buddha said that he's here to do one thing and one thing only, to find the cause of suffering and to cure it. Which to me sounds like 2 things, but I'm not going to argue with the Buddha. And all the techniques that he taught of mindfulness, meditation, resurfaced in the last 100 years with the evolution of depth psychology, especially in the forms of a combination therapy called cognitive behavioral therapy, and even more popular today, acceptance commitment therapy. These are practices where we use our ability to attend, to be mindful, to unlink habitual patterns of behavior, unskillful behaviors that no longer really serve us. So into modern psychology has come the ancient influence of the Buddha. And one researcher who was a Buddhist practitioner named John Kabat-Zinn coined this practice mindfulness-based stress reduction, sometimes abbreviated MBSR. But the basic technique is awareness of present experience with acceptance. This practice of mindfulness that the Buddha taught 2,500 years ago, has been proven over and over again in many laboratory settings to reduce mental stress, physiological health and well-being, reduce emotional problems. And if it doesn't cure a lot of problems, it certainly helps in our reaction to the problems. It helps us become able to cope with the things in life that don't work out the way we'd like them to. Of course, in our Yin Yoga practice, we get lots of sensations. We are taken past our comfort zone deliberately. As long as we're not in pain, we stay there. But while we're there, we practice mindfulness, attending to the raw sensations of the experience without adding anything to them, without trying to subtract anything from them. So for the last minute, again, notice what you're experiencing. Notice the sensations, and also notice your breath. Find the place where the breath can be quiet, which means don't be too deep in the pose where you can't really stay still. If the breath isn't quiet, you can't calm the breath or allow it to become calm, then maybe you've had enough. You can come out of the pose. Otherwise, 3 more breaths here. Now, as always, slowly, you can release the leg. Just pause there for a moment, or straighten the legs up the wall. Just feel the rebound, the echo of that pose. And you're welcome to linger here longer if you feel you need a bit more of a rest. Otherwise, we're going to do the other side. So take the other foot just below the knee. Make sure you are doing the other side. Then slide that foot down the wall. And again, you might be a little bit further away from the wall than when we started. That's fine. If you know this is your funky knee, before you bend the straight leg, flex that foot. That's going to help to stabilize the fascia and the ligaments along the knee, and then bend the knee. If you get that painful pinching at the hip, again, options, you can put a bolster in there, you can use your hand to slightly pull away, or again, you can come back to the strap, just folding a few loops, place them between the top of the pelvis and the thigh, and then come into the pose. Once you're in the pose, cultivate that stillness. On the first side, I did a lot of talking. It tends to be a little bit more stressful when we work into the hips, and the talking can help distract you. But on this side, no distractions. You're on your own. But it will remind you from time to time to keep coming back, to returning. The simple formula of awareness of present experience with acceptance. While our intention is to cultivate stillness, presence, mindfulness, the mind, of course, is always moving. That's just the nature of mind. The intention is not to stop the mind. Even a moving mind can be an object for our awareness, just as we notice sensations physically, or we notice the breath. We can also notice thoughts coming and going, like waves. So you notice here comes a thought, and then just let it go. Don't force it away. Don't try to stop it. A thought rises, let it go. A breath rises, you let it go. If you find that you're suddenly surfing the wave and you're far, far away, then just notice that and come back. This way we use the breath as an anchor, something that holds us in the present moment and prevents us from drifting too far away. And when you drifted away, mentally just come back. About 3 more breaths here. And then we're going to release slowly. You can lift your leg up, both feet against the wall, pause there for a moment. Or just the legs up the wall. Again, just enjoy the rebound of that previous pose. Feel the energy flowing again. And then we're going to release the spine a bit through a twist, kind of a bit of a wall twist. So if you have your feet against the wall, and the knees slightly bent, we're going to drop both knees to one side. So you come over to the side, you try to keep your shoulders flat. If the knees don't quite make it to the floor, you can put a block or some support underneath the knees. Some people like the supports between the knees. If the shoulder is floating, it may be a good idea to put some support underneath the knees. But it's okay to have the shoulder float too. Nice stress through the upper chest region. If it's safe for you to do so, you can extend the arm out. But if that creates any tingling in the fingers, it's best to support that arm onto a block or a bolster, or lower the arm a bit. If that doesn't get rid of the tingling, you can rest the hand on the rib cage. If it's okay for your neck, you can turn your head to look away from the knees. But if turning your head creates any lightheadedness or dizziness, then don't turn your head. Now, for students who are naturally quite flexible and they don't really feel this too much, because the two knees are stacked, the bottom leg is stopping the top knee from coming over, you can bring the top of the foot against the wall of the bottom leg. The wall is supporting that foot, and that allows you to bring the top knee down. It's a bit like a cat pulling its tail. You can reach down and grab that foot if you like, or just let it rest there. So do the version that feels appropriate. And then we'll come back to our intention for this practice, which is this stillness. So be aware the breath can be quiet. The mind can become quiet. Physically, the pose will do its work. You don't have to be in the most deep twist ever. As long as you're feeling some sensations, you're getting the benefits. And again, make this into a mini meditation. Now we can use the breath as the anchor for our awareness. Simply noticing, breathing in, breathing out. For some people find it easier to stay present if they use the kinesthetic feelings in the body as the anchor for their awareness. This too can work. Just take the most obvious sensation you're experiencing. Maybe it's along the top of the outer thigh. Maybe it's along the spine. Just allow your awareness to be there, noticing the sensation. Another wonderful anchor for our awareness is sounds. We simply listen. And listening as a meditation is very yin-like. You don't have to do anything to create the sounds. They just come to you. So just listen. You can choose to listen to one particular sound. Notice the details of that sound. Or you can listen to the whole symphony of sounds all around you. When you notice that mentally you've wandered away, come back to your anchor. About 3 more breaths here. Use your inhale to come back to the center. Pause there for a moment. And you can always just let the legs rest up the wall. Feel the rebound of the previous pose. And of course, there's no hurry to do the other side, but when you're ready, again, bend the knees so the feet are against the wall. And then drop both knees the other way. So again, your feet are resting against the wall. Start to roll the chest open. Again, some people may need to put some support under the knees to relax the shoulder. But it's okay if the shoulder's floating too. Again, if you extend the arm, that may draw the shoulder down. But beware of tingling. If you get any tingling, lower the arm. Or just rest the hand on the rib cage. If the neck's okay, you can turn the head to look away from the knees. Another option for those that need a bit more is to bring the bottom leg so the top of the foot's against the wall. Now you have more room to bring the top knee down, which for you may deepen the twist. Most people won't need that. They can just do the two-knee version. And I invite you to close your eyes. Once again, choose an anchor for your awareness. The breath, sensations, sounds. Use this as a mini 4 or 5 minute meditation. Keep coming back to awareness of that anchor. If mentally you've gone away, just come back. Over and over again. We go away, we get distracted, lost in thoughts. And over again, we notice and we come back. Remember the astronauts heading to the moon, 97% of the time, they were off course. But they noticed and they adjusted. So don't expect you'll be 100% present all the time. That never happens. We just keep returning. So 3 more breaths here. Ride your next inhale back to the center. Again, options, you can have the knees bent, feet against the wall, or straighten the legs up the wall. Notice how this feels. Now, throughout our wall practice today, we have been flexing the hips quite a bit. So our last pose before we head to Shavasana will be to kind of move the hips in the other direction, an extension. So when you're ready, you can roll over to one side. We're going to do the wall sphinx pose. Bring the knees against the wall and the floor. Prop yourself up on your elbows. Walk the elbows a little bit out in front of you. And just with the regular sphinx, notice how this feels. If it's too much pressure in the lower back, walk the elbows away. Or as always, you can use a bolster underneath the armpits. You can keep the head up, support the head into your hands or with a block, or let the head hang down. For those that don't feel very much in this pose, you can prop yourself up on the bolster. But again, we're not trying to go for the deepest sensation in the lower back. Remember, time is more important than intensity. So just be at a place where you feel something. Now, with the knees bent, that may make this a bit juicier. So again, optionally, you can move the arms further away. And for some people, even just resting on their belly is enough stress for the lower back. But find the place where you can be still here. I invite you to close your eyes. Practice awareness of present experience with acceptance. And by practicing these mini meditations throughout the Yin practice, they start to become habitual, which means you might notice that you become aware of your present experience even when you're not doing yoga. Throughout the day, you might find there's some other forms of stress in your life, not just the physical stress of a yoga practice, but mental stresses, psychological, emotional stresses, financial stresses. Even in these times, you might notice that this practice of pausing, becoming still, reappears. And what we develop here on the mat starts to inform the rest of our life. Again, it doesn't take 20 minutes all at once, or 45 minutes, or an hour of sitting. Those are nice things to do. But our Yin practice can be our meditation practice. And it can start to seep into our everyday life. So for the last 2 minutes here, choose an anchor and pay attention. The breath, sensations, thoughts, emotions, sounds. All these things can be an anchor for awareness. We simply notice them, allow them. About 3 more breaths here. And then slowly lower down. Release the legs from the wall. And just pause for a moment. Our final pose will be Shavasana. Now for Shavasana, we have 3 options. One option is to do the legs up the wall again, which can be quite a restorative position. The second option is to come into a regular Shavasana, just lying down, the arms and legs out to the side. The third option, since we have been lying down quite a bit, is to finish with a seated meditation. So you can choose which option feels appropriate for you today. You can put on layers, put on socks, grab a sweater or a blanket, just so you can stay warm in whichever position you're choosing. Take off anything that's tight or constricting. And take a moment to snuggle. Feel yourself releasing into the earth. As if the earth is absorbing all your tension. Release the breath. Release the bones. Notice the stillness still. A quiet sense of peace growing within you. Feel this state of relaxation deepening. Enjoy the stillness of this moment. Enjoy being relaxed. Now, slowly, bring your awareness back to your body, allowing your breath to become a little bit longer, breathing a little deeper. In your own way, and in your own time, come back to sitting. Thank you again for your intentions and your attention.